So, good evening, everyone. Okay, so my topic today is silence in communication. So, this is a very common topic, but we use silence in different manners a lot of time. But we don't realize how important silence is or how powerful the silence is. So, how you are going to use the silence will also represent a lot of things. It is the loudest and the most powerful form of communication. You might feel like, like something happened and I just kept quiet. So you didn't do any harm, but the way you kept quiet might be a different kind of a silence. So if you go on Google, there are a lot of types of silences and lot of kind of things which are mentioned, but I won't go into that Google definition or anything. I will present it based on my experiences or based on how things work with SGI or how things should be in a professional environment. So meaning of silence will differ on different occasions. Sometimes it is required, so like how Akram just said, like how we had the silence. Sometimes that silence is required because it's showing that the meeting is going to begin, or there is something like, you have to avoid the disturbance. So that's why I have classified this thing broadly into two categories: a positive silence and negative silence. So positive silence can be constructive, wherein it helps you to move forward with your conversation. Even though you're silent, like the other person gets an opportunity to talk, or can feel comfortable that, there is, though there is silence, I am more comfortable to present my point or have a discussion kind of thing. But the destructive type, the negative silence, it completely shuts down the communication. It creates a lot of miscommunications, it creates barriers, and the next person who's there is not very comfortable speaking in front of you. Though you feel like, you tried to give that silence or you try to keep quiet, but when you kept quiet also matters. Now silence is a language. We might say, like, keeping quiet is like we are just giving an end to everything, but you are still communicating. The way, the duration of silence is being communicated for a longer time. So there are different ways of using silence. So if you go to see the chart, there is a different, the whole chart, like, wherein you can use this silence in terms of body language or in terms of eye contact. If you remember when you were small and if the guest came and you wanted to eat the biscuit from the guest dish and your mom gave you a stare, that eye contact was enough for you to know that you are not supposed to eat that biscuit. So this kind of smaller things are also a part of silence. Lot of time this silence is used in a lot of official ways also. Mostly it's used to show the authority or the power, especially when there are interviews going on. If you go to see, if you are taking this interview and that person is supposed to speak and he's not speaking up, a lot of time I face this. I tell them to tell something about themselves. They will tell me what is mentioned in the resume, the first two lines, and then done. But I don't want to hear that. So if I create that silence, so they understand, like, there is some kind of a gap which is there where they have to speak. So this is an unsaid rule kind of thing. They will automatically start filling up that gap of silence. So this kind of thing will allow you to show the power or you to show the authority that you are the interviewer, and the person who's answering the interview will also get little confident, like, yes, I'm being heard and I'm getting some time wherein I can frame myself better and speak. So here that silence plays a very important role. Same way when there is hostility or disagreement. So whenever you have a disagreement, many a times, like in the meeting suppose or with the client, you might just go silent. Now you might be having different kinds of things in your mind and you just stayed silent. Now this can have a different perception for different things also. Now in the manner of hostility or disagreement, you need to speak up. If you say, like, you do not agree, you have to say it. If you don't say it, it might be assumed that it is accepted or you agree with whatever it is. The next thing is a cultural significance, wherein again silence has a different thing. If you are talking to an elder person and then you are just talking any nonsense and then suddenly an elder person enters over there, you will stop immediately. You'll create that silence. This is a respectful silence. So same way in different cultures, there are different ways wherein the silence is utilized. So some places you're not supposed to talk. When you go to a religious place maybe, so that time you're expected to keep silence. Nobody will tell you to keep silent or anything like that. This silence is you come to know automatically from the environment. So for example, like if you go to a maybe a temple or any even all this religious place, like church or something like that, you automatically realize that you have to be silent. You cannot go on making noise over there. This also shows, like that you respect this culture, you respect these people, or your environment outside. So this is another way of using a silence. Then there is this silence can help you in coaching or understanding the other person also. So recently we had a session on mental health. So especially these people use it in coaching or understanding the patient or the person who's talking to you. For example, like if she had to interrupt or if she had to keep on talking, like whatever you're asking, if she had to interrupt, you wouldn't open up that much. So that silence which is created, it helps her also to understand what kind of person you are. There are some people who are introverts who will not open up, so no matter how much silence you give, they will just stop at that person point. But when you are an extrovert, so like that silence, you try to fill up that gap. So if you're sitting in a room and then for so long you're not talking to each other, and then the extrovert will try to talk something, some uh, communication to break this silence. So this is one kind of a communication which is always happening. If you sit in a same room where your friend is there and both of you all are quiet for 5 minutes, it's a very awkward scenario which gets created. Again, it depends on what kind of friends you have. Sometimes they don't like to talk, so that's a different type. But if you have a talkative person next to you and then there is a lot of silence, then there is like of course something is wrong with this person or something is happening. That's why he's not talking or speaking up, anything like that. So there are just different things which you need to sometimes realize when the silence is being used. So even when you have to respond, if you are silent, that also gives a different meaning to it. Now, silence can be used as a very powerful tool. You are allowed to think during this silence. You are allowed to breathe. Now, if I stop talking now and I take a deep breath, so you will wait, like there is next thing coming up. Or if I just stop and I just stop talking over here, you might just say, like maybe the internet connection is gone or something happened, or I'm not talking, I lost a whole meeting, or something like that, or I forgot. So this will give you a lot of things. Like in that silence you will be able to judge a lot of stuff. You will be able to think, breathe, listen, or hold the attention of the listener. So try to understand this phase when there is silence. So sometimes you just want to break the barrier and simply you say something that is not required at times, and that breaks your whole image sometimes. Especially like suppose in a meeting when you are allowed to stay silent and you are allowed to, like make a comment after thinking, but then you immediately say, yeah, yeah, I agree with whatever you said, meaning the client or the other person on the other side will feel like, okay, this person did not even think or doesn't want to think maybe. So this kind of perception gets created. Also, it allows others to process what you are saying. So right now if I say something and I stay silent, so you will again go back to the two lines which are displayed over here, and you will try to think what I'm trying to say, or you might go back into one of the examples that you have in mind wherein you had used silence and all. So it is also helping you to process a lot of things, and then it will help you to consider the response also. So these are how you have to go ahead with different lines or different scenarios. Now, how is it applicable in day-to-day life? So if you see the picture, these are the ways how your silence can be thought of, or how silence is, your opinion is taken when you're silent. So some people might think, like, if there is silence, maybe you're thinking, but right now the camera is off and you don't know what is happening. Suddenly there is silence when there is a meeting going on. So some people might think, like that, yeah, the other person is thinking, or that person is distracted. So if you are asking someone a question and then suddenly there is silence, there is sometimes, yes, there is a mute button which you forget to unmute and you keep on talking. But this side, somebody might misunderstand that, yeah, this person is not responding or don't want to respond. There can be positive as well as negative thoughts which are generated. So you might feel like, that other person is distracted. Mostly what happens is when there is long silence, you always take the negative approach to it. You won't give the positive side to that. So you will say, oh, maybe that person is irritated with what I said, or you are like, you are disappointed, or you don't care that you have to reply to this, or they will generate a lot of misconceptions. So these kind of things keep happening a lot. So that's why you should make sure, like, whenever you are maintaining this silence, how you are keeping the silence. Now, again, the positive part, like, if you have maintained silence for some time, the other person might think, like, that you are thinking about what question was asked or what discussion was done, or you are maybe processing, or you are preparing for a reply, or you are a little hesitant maybe. Or directly, some people might assume, like, if I ask you how many of you all are ready to give the next PDC, and there is silence, so it's like, either nobody is ready, or you all are thinking, maybe, like, somebody will raise hand and say, like, I will talk about this PDC next time. So this kind of assumptions will go on in the other person's mind. Sometimes when you are silent, the other person will directly assume that, okay, you have agreed on the decision, some decision is made. So suppose we decide, like, that over the weekend everybody will be working, and we ask the opinion, nobody is talking. So we will assume, like, okay, fine, so nobody has said no to it, so everybody will work over the weekend. But the minute you say, like, no, no, weekend is not meant for work, or we have other plans, or we can't work, whatever it might be, so that is the time, that silence you took for processing whatever we have said. Sometimes you don't have opinion, so you need to say that I don't have any opinion. It really frustrates the other person on the who's the speaker. So if I ask a question and I'm not getting any response, so I will be really frustrated. You might be having a conversation in your head. You might be preparing, oh, she asked me about the PDC next time, so what topic I can prepare, or something like that. And you might be really preparing for the PDC next week. But then, since you're not answering, I'm already irritated this side. I'm like, okay, nobody is interested, nobody wants this PDC and all those things. So this kind of assumptions start building up. So what you can do is, you can say, like, just give me a minute, let us think. So then I know, like, this silence is being utilized for thinking or for processing some of the things. If you don't say anything, we will go on assuming, and it's a human mind. We normally try to assume a lot of things. So, how to use the silence and yet communicate? So, how you have to do is, as I have told you first, like, if you are maintaining a pause, so you have to give it in a positive manner. You just don't keep quiet and, like, don't respond. So, if somebody has asked you a question, maintain a pause, and maybe say, like, just let me think about it. Can you give me 2 minutes? So then there is a silence, and that other person also won't misunderstand. They will be like, okay, you are thinking about something, and you require some time to actually come up with an answer which will be helpful. Now, again, you also have to allot some time for yourself to remain silent. But then, when you're making those facial expressions, now, when we were in office and all, and we had a meeting or we had a PDC, if you are giving a PDC and somebody is making faces at you, so that person might be thinking something else. That person might be distracted completely. But when you are giving a PDC and you can see the other person is yawning, or that person is making faces, or they just look at the ceiling, so this will make you feel very demotivated, that looks like my PDC is very boring and I am kind of, like, not deserving to be in this place, and it will demotivate you a lot, because the person sitting there has no idea that silence is there from his end, and he's not doing any harm as per him. But whatever expressions, whatever gestures he's making is actually making the other person very, very uncomfortable, or very doubtful about themselves. You need to show a lot of respect, especially when you're maintaining silence. So if suppose you are talking to your manager in one on one and he's trying to tell you something, and you just remain silent. Yeah, silence is required, but you are looking outside the window, you are looking at his head, or you are looking at the ceiling, and he is talking to you. Now this silent communication is also very dangerous, because the manager will think whatever I'm talking to you, or that person is not trying to respond, or not trying to even listen. So same way, if you are not listening, or anybody who's at the other end is not listening, or not looking at you also, will create a very negative impact. It is very important that you give feedback. So whenever feedbacks are asked, a lot of time the same thing happens, like when PDC is over, we ask for a feedback, we push people, like, like say something, and then we don't get that response. So like we feel like, that this PDC, maybe they didn't understand, or maybe they don't want to answer, or they are not interested. This kind of things happen. So like, if even if you say like, I understood, I would not like to say anything because it was a good PDC. Now, if this much is said, again the whole environment is changed into a very positive kind of thing. Okay, so also you should not underestimate the silence of other person. You say something, and the other person has remained silent. It might be because of respect for you, your position, or they don't want to hurt the other person. So you don't underestimate, just because this person is silent, I just go on saying something. If that person, if somebody is scolding you, and you just keep quiet, and then that other person will feel even more aggravated, and then they will go on screaming. Now you should understand that the other person is silent, maybe they have something to say. So if you go on screaming on that person, he will never open up. So when once you find that there is a lot of silence, you also need to slow down. Maybe like, stop over there, maybe understand, try to understand the whole scenario and the environment, how it is going about. So this kind of silence also you need to understand when it is happening. Other thing is, people can't read your mind. So sometimes you assume like, oh, I kept quiet, so he should understand that I did not like it. Nobody will understand. So for example, you had an argument with your friend, and you just kept quiet. So this person must have said something jokingly that, oh, you have become fat, you don't look good now, this that, and you just kept quiet because you felt very hurt. Now this, the other person who said things to you won't realize that, because he's your friend. He'll assume like, whatever I said is fine, and this person has kept quiet, meaning he has accepted and he's okay with it. But internally you are making up all sorts of scenarios. So in this case also, you have to understand that other person cannot read your mind. So don't just assume and keep quiet over there. So if you don't like something, say it, like, maybe we should discuss over this later on, or maybe like, I don't like this kind of discussion. Or you say like, personally go and tell. You, if you don't want to say something in public, personally you can tell. So this kind of silence also is important. Sometimes what happens is, in the meeting and all, you just go on saying something, or on Slack channel you go on saying something, and the other person has said silently over there. So there might be something which is going on. So maybe you go personally and tell them like, this is the scenario, this is the thing, I am not happy with what discussion you have made, or what decision you have come up with. So maybe like, the other person who had posted a lot of things in Slack will go again and say another thing. Okay, now in person there is silence, and there are silences in emails or communications also. So suppose there was an email sent and there was a reply expected from you. Now when you read that email, you are very very angry. You are like, no, not accepting whatever is written in that email, and you want to reply back, but then you don't reply anything. And eventually you make up things in your mind, and then you feel like, you start hating this person for no reason. What you could have done is replied to that email and said like, maybe we should talk, or this is my side of the reply, this is how I see things. But if you don't reply, for my side, I have done my responsibility, I have shot I shoot out an email and I'm done, and you understand whatever you want to. So this silence is also not expected, especially when clients and all are there. So when clients send something and you don't respond for next 24 hours, the client might be frustrated. That person might be trying to even withdraw the project, because there is no communication from your side and there is a long silence. So this kind of silence also is one of the dangerous silences that you use. Nowadays a lot of us use WhatsApp or some other communication tools wherein you get this blue ticks. So the minute you open the chat and you see, and then the other person will see the blue ticks. So after that there is no reply from you. It is not that you have not seen it. So this kind of communication is started to build up. A lot of miscommunications happen because of this. So you might have just by mistake opened the text and forgot about it, and you went ahead with your work, or you were in a hurry, you didn't bother to reply to this text, and then the other person started making some assumptions about this kind of silence. So they are like, okay, this one saw my message but not replying. So and then you are online. This is another kind of thing which frustrates people. You are online, you're not replying to my chat, you have seen it, it's blue. So this whole thing creates a whole miscommunication. The third thing is about the calls also. Sometimes I recently read about it. So if you attend a call, I mean somebody is calling you two times, and you do not receive it, or you do not call back, or even message back saying that I will call you later or anything. This is a message for you that don't call me third time. So this kind of things are starting to build up. So earlier a lot of us, we used to meet each other face to face, and lot of things used to happen. You could make out people with their facial expressions and all, and you could easily understand, like, what you said, somebody felt angry or hurt or whatever it is, and immediately you could repair whatever you have done. But now we all are working into remote areas. We are not meeting our friends, we are not in touch with a lot of people, and suddenly we start ghosting some of this communication methods. So this will again create a lot of misunderstanding for people, and it will spoil relationships. So that is the reason you have to make sure, like, what is your silence and how you are using it. Okay, so that was a short PDC.